Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. This video is for part 1 of the Scheepjes CAL 2020. This crochet along is called the Natural History Crochet Along and is designed by Christina from A Spoonful of Yarn. I'll be using Scheepjes stone-washed yarn because I've got a stone-washed kit to make my blanket, but you could also have a color crafter kit. For part 1 you'll be needing hook A, so hook size A. For the stone washed it's a 4mm hook, for the color crafter a 5mm hook. So that's the hook that you need for this part. I'll take you step by step through all the rounds that make up part 1. But thank you for watching. Hope it's a useful video for you. Round 1. You have color 3 and 4mm hook. Or actually hook A, I should say. If you have a color craft package it will be a different size. I'm going to start with the magic rings. I'm going to fold the yarn over, underneath, grab that thread and grab it again and pull through. Oh no, I've just closed that loop too little. There we go. If you prefer you can also do a starting chain and closing with the slip stitch, but the pattern says a magic ring. Chain 3. This counts as your first treble, and now in the ring 11 more trebles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, until you have 11, 7, 8, and pull a bit more, 8, 9, 10, and this is the last one, 11. So with that starting chain 3 you now have 12. Grab the yarn tail, the starting yarn tail here, and then pull this ring closed. And don't pull too tight because I have had this this yarn tail just snap off if you pull it too tight. So pull that ring closed and then close here on the starting chain 3. So there's a starting chain 3 on the top of that. Close with a slip stitch. There we go. And now you're ready for round 2. Round 2, going to work a treble in every stitch and chain ones in between. So start with a chain 4, 2, 3. The first 3 chains is treble, and then you need chain 1. And now you're going to work a treble in the next stitch and chain 1, and then a treble in the next stitch and chain 1. Continue like this until you're all the way around. Then I'll just show you how to close again. So treble in the next stitch and then a chain 1. Almost round. Chain 1. I have one last treble to do. This stitch here. Chain 1. And now you're going to close on the 3rd chain, because remember we made 4 chains here, but the last one is the chain 1 space. So if you look here at your 4 chains, you're going to go to the 3rd chain, insert your hook in there. So you still have this 1 chain left to form the space. And then close with a slip stitch at the beginning. So on that 3rd chain. I'm going to cut yarn and open up. There we go. Round 3, I have color 2 on my hook with a slip knot, and we're going to start in any chain space, any chain 1 space, and we're going to work 3 trebles in every chain space. I'm just going to start in this space. It really doesn't matter where you start. And we're going to start with a standing treble. So I'm just going to yarn over on my hook and hold on to these loops. Insert your hook and then work the first treble. Work 2 more trebles in the same space. So 1 and 2. Now we're going to start the repeat again. Come to the next chain space and work 3 trebles in there. So 1, 2, 3. Repeat this all the way around. Work 3 trebles in every chain space. I'm going to see you back when I'm at this point, just to show you how to close on that standing stitch. Just at the end of round 3, and I want to show you how to close. If you look here at the standing stitch, you see there at the top, you see here's the slip knot, and then right next to it is the stitch. Then in that stitch, just next to the slip knot, insert your hook and close with a slip stitch. The slip knot will now fall to the back of your work. Now you're ready for round 4. Round 4, I'm going to continue with the same color. I'm going to start with the chain 1. This chain 1 does not count as a stitch. We're now going to work in between the groups of 3 trebles that we worked. So you see here, there's this natural space kind of between the 3 trebles. It's just exactly above the trebles from a few rows down. That's the space where we're going to be working. Now the first, I'm going to work a double crochet between the 3 treble groups that we just worked. So we're kind of going to come down, and in that chain space there, or that's not really a chain space, it's more like a space, work a double crochet. Now I'm going to skip the 3 trebles and come to the next opening here, or it's kind of an opening. I'm going to work 6 trebles in there, and this is also the start of our repeat. So in there work 6 trebles. That's 1. It's going to be like a little shell. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I've got those 6 trebles in that between the 3 treble groups. Now come to the next space between 3 treble groups. Okay, so if you just push your finger in there, you see that space, or opening I should say, and in there work a double crochet. And this you're going to repeat all the way around. So work a shell and then work a double. I'll show you the repeat once more, and then you can do the rest without me. I'll just show you the closing at the end. So in the next opening here, work 6 trebles for a new shell. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Here I've got the 6 trebles, and now come to the next opening between 3 treble groups and work a double crochet in there. Going to repeat this all the way around. You've now done 2, you need to do 4 more, and then I'll see you after you've worked those last 6 trebles in that space, and then I'll show you just how to close the round. When you're all the way around, you'll have your 6 trebles here, and then the next space already contains that very first double crochet we made. And you're going to close on that first double crochet with a slip stitch. So just insert a hook into the stitch and close. can cut your yarn and fasten off, and then we're ready for the next round. Round 5. I have color 3 on my hook with a slip knot, and we're going to start, let me just show you, in the space after a treble shell but before the double. So you see here's the treble shell, and you see here's the double crochet, and if you kind of pull this open, you'll see here where my finger is poking through, in that space, so in there, that's where we're going to work. And likewise there's also a space on the other side of the double crochet, that space there. These are the two spaces where we're going to be poking our hook into. It doesn't matter where you start, so any position. And we're going to start with a standing double crochet, so that means the yarn's on my hook. So insert your hook in this space. So if you just pull your fabric open, you'll see this space here. So it's before the double, so that space. Then pick up the loop and complete the double crochet. Now we're going to start our repeat unit. Just chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and now come to the, you're going to skip the double crochet that's here, and then come to the next space. So that's the space where my finger is trying to poke through. So that space, insert your hook and work a double crochet in that space. We're now going to work back post half trebles around the 6 trebles that make up the shell. And the first one can be a bit tricky. I'm going to yarn over for the half treble, then come around that first treble. And that first one is often the most difficult. So around that first treble, so that's a back post, half treble. Yarn over and come around the next one. This is all still a bit small and fiddly, I know. That's 2. And this is 3. This here is 4. You've got 2 more trebles to go. 4. So it's around the post of the stitch. 4. And this one here is 5. Oh, sorry, 6. I just lost count. There we go. 6. So around the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see those back post stitches. This really gives you this nice little edge. We're now going to work a double crochet again, and we're again going to work it in actually in the same relative position as that one. Yeah, so in this space, so there where my finger is poking through again. So in that same position between the shell and the first double, your next double there, work a double crochet. And this double is in essence the same as that one. So that means everything you've just done, so starting at the chain 3, repeat that all the way around. And when you're here, after you've worked your last back post, you're going to close on your standing stitch, and you're going to do that in the same way as before. You're going to close on your standing stitch here with a slip stitch, and then you can cut your yarn. Round 6 of your work, we have color 1 on your hook, and we're going to start with a standing double crochet. And where we're going to work is in the shell. If you're looking at the shell, you've got these back post stitches. You're going to start in the second stitch, that's that one. You're going to work in 2, 3, 4, and 5. So stitch number 6 and stitch number 1 we're going to be skipping. Starting in the second, you can start in any position you like. In the second of those 2 back post, those 6 back post stitches. I'm going to skip the first one and then come to the second, insert the standing double crochet. And I need 3 more, so that's 1, 2, and 3. So you now have 4 double crochets, and the first is a standing stitch. We're now going to skip the stitch number 6 and this double crochet. We're going to skip that. We're going to come to this chain 3 space, and in there we're going to work quite a few stitches. We're going to work a 5 treble bobble, a 3 double treble bobble, and a 5 treble bobble with chains 2s in between. So start with the 5 treble bobble. So that's yarn over, insert, pick up a hook, or pick up your loop I mean, and take off 2. That's 1. I'm going to do this 5 times. 2. This is 3, 4, 5. Then take off all your loops in one go. Now you're going to have to move this up because we need to get quite a few more stitches in here, so just push that back. Chain 2, and now work a 3 double treble bobble. So it's yarn over twice, and then take off 2, take off 2. So that's 1, and this is 2, and this is 3. All the loops on your hook, take them off in one go. Chain 2 again, and now again work a double treble bobble, so the same as the first one. Oh, sorry, a 5. You work a 5 treble bobble, the same as the first one. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 loops on your hook, take them all off. At this point we're going to skip 2 stitches. We're going to skip the double crochet, which is actually, your stitches are kind of falling over it, and this first back post stitch. So they're really hard to see. Easiest is to just come to the second stitch. Now you see here are your 6 back post stitches. Here's the second one, then come to that second stitch. Insert your hook in there. And this second stitch, that stitch is actually equivalent to the standing stitch we started with. That's 1. So you're going to work 4 in total. 2, 3, and 4. There you go. And now you're at the same point we were here. So this little piece with these beautiful flower stitches and the 4 double crochets, I'm going to repeat this all the way around. And here at the end, after you've worked your last 5 treble bobble, going to close on the standing double crochet, that's that stitch, close on there with a slip stitch, and then you can also fasten off. Round 7, you have color 2 on your hook with a slip knot, and we're going to start on any of the edges here. Well, edges, you have these 4 double crochets. We're going to start in the 3rd stitch, so that one there, the 3rd one, with a standing treble. So I'm going to yarn over, hold on to that, and then come to the 3rd stitch and work a treble. There you go. Now we're going to start the repeat. So let's chain 1, and now we're going to come back to the previous stitch and work a treble in here. So we're actually going to cross these stitches. So in the 2nd stitch, and then you're kind of going to cover trebles already there, and then work the treble. So you have these 2 crossed stitches. We're now going to work a double treble, and we're going to do that in the skipped double crochet from round 5, and that's here. That's this stitch here. That's actually right before the chain space, that double crochet. And that means yeah, we're going to have to work over it. So we're going to yarn over twice because it's a double treble, and then into that stitch. So you see I'm inserting into that double crochet there, and you're going to work over all the stitches from round 6. So I'm going to cover all of them. Grab your loop, and now bring your loop up to the stitches of round 6. So you see I'm just going to just extend that loop a little bit. So you don't want to work it here, just give it a little bit of slack, and then complete the double treble. By giving it a bit of slack, you see this yarn stripe here. So that was a double treble, and now we're going to work into round 6 again. I'm going to work 2 trebles in the first bobble, then 4 trebles in the chain space, 2 trebles, 4 trebles, and 2 trebles again. So in the 5 treble bobble, I'm going to work 2 trebles in here. And you see this is a pretty long stitch here for me, because that's also the stitch in which you yarn over and take off all those loops. So it tends to be a large stitch. So 2 trebles in this 5 treble bobble. Now you're at the chain 2 space. Work 4 trebles in here. So 4 trebles. That's 1, 2. I just need a bit more yarn. 2. This is 3. And 4. You're now at the 3 double treble bobble. Again, 2 trebles in here. So just go for the top of the stitch here. So that's 1 and 2. The next chain space, 4 trebles again. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here the last one, this is your 5 treble bobble. Work 2 trebles in here. So that's 1 and 2. So your rhythm is in that sense nice and easy. It's 2 trebles in every one of the bobbles and 4 trebles in the chain spaces in between. Now I'm going to work the same on this side as we did here. So this double treble here, you're going to work that again, and this time on the double crochet that's here on the other side. And if you're really going to have to pull these stitches open, because it's that double crochet right there. No, actually that was the wrong one. Here. There it is. That stitch, that's the one you want. You're really going to have to poke your hook in there. So double treble, this 2 times over, and you see this is the back post stitch, but you want the double crochet, and that's even in front of that. So you're going to really have to poke your hook into that stitch, and now you again cover everything from round 6, so all over here. Grab your yarn, you see in that double crochet there, and then bring this loop up again. So just give it a bit of room. So you don't work it here, but just give it a bit of slack, and then complete the double treble. There you go. So you see you've got it similar on this side as on that side. Now we can just, now it's nice and easy, you can just skip these next 2 double crochets. So these next 2, 1, 2, and in the third one work a double crochet. Oh, sorry, a treble. So you're working a treble in the double crochet. And that stitch is exactly equivalent to the stitch we started with, to the standing stitch. So all of this I'm going to repeat 5 more times. So just to get you started, chain 1, and now you work the cross. So you come back to the second double crochet and work a treble. And now you're going to work your long double crochet or double treble in that double crochet there. So this repeat 5 more times all the way around, and when you're all the way around, you're going to close on this first standing treble on that stitch with a slip stitch, and then you can also cut your yarn and fasten off. Round 8. For round 8 you have color 3 on your hook, and we're going to start in the double treble that comes after the cross stitch. You see, here's the cross stitch, and then immediately after that here is a double treble. This is left from the cross stitch if you're right-handed and right from the cross stitch if you're left-handed. So in this double treble you're going to start with a standing double crochet. So insert your hook and complete the first double crochet in there. Now we're going to work a small repeat unit 7 times. So we're going to do chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to skip 1 stitch and then work a double. I'm going to do that 7 times. So I'm going to skip this stitch, the next stitch, and then come to the second and then work a double in there. And again chain 2. That was once, skip a stitch. This is 2 times, chain 2. This is 3 times, chain 2. And this is 4 times, chain 2. And this is 5, chain 2. And this is 6, 1 more, chain 2. And then skip 1, and this is 7. There you go. So we've done that 7 times. We're now going to come to the cross stitches, and in the middle of the cross stitch there's this chain 1, there's this little gap. Now we're going to be working in that gap. So insert your hook into the chain space and work a slip stitch. There you go. Now in that same space we're going to work a few more stitches. Starting with a chain 4, 2, 3, 4, a treble in that space, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and in that space again a slip stitch. So that kind of brings the chain space, the chain 4 down and securing it into that space. So work a slip stitch. So now you see you've got these 2 loops here. That was a slip stitch. Now we're going to work a double crochet again in the next double treble. So here's a double treble, and there work double crochet. And this double crochet is the same as the one we started with here. So all of this repeats all the way around. So now you're going to again work chain 2, skip stitch, well, everything repeat, and when you get here to the all the way back round, after you've done your last slip stitch, you'll close on this very first double crochet with a slip stitch again, standing stitch, and then you can also fasten off. Round 9, you have color 1 on your hook with a slip knot, and we're going to start in, if you look here at the chain spaces, you've got these chain 2 spaces. We're going to start in the second chain 2 space. So you see here's a chain 4, and they've got 1 chain 2, and you come to the second chain 2. I'm going to start with a standing treble. Yarn over, so come to that second space and work a treble in there. I'm actually going to work a second treble as well. So it's 2 trebles in there. I'm going to work 2 trebles in the next 4 spaces. So this chain 2 space, it's 1, 2, go to the next space, 1, 2, so I've now done 2, need to do 4, so you'll have 5 in total, 5 of these 2 trebles. And this is the last one. And 2. There we go. I just need a bit more yarn. There we go. So you've got 5 of these sets of 2 trebles, and you've got a chain 2 space on either side left. Now we're going to skip that chain 2 space here, and we're going to come to the chain 4 space, and this is also where our repeat will start. In this chain 4 space, work 5 trebles. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go, 5 trebles. Chain 2, 1, 2, and now come to the other side, so you've got another chain 4 space here, and work 5 trebles in that chain 4 space. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're now going to again skip the next chain 2 space and come to the second chain 2 space and work 2 trebles in there. So skipping this space, come to the next and work 2 trebles. That's 1 and 2. You're going to do that 5 times. It's 1, 2, just 2 trebles, again the next space, 2 trebles, and again the next space, 2 trebles, and the last one, 2 trebles. So now you've done this in 5 of the spaces, the center 5. And you'll notice that your work really bobbles a lot at this point. Don't stress about it. It will all flatten out as it grows. So you've now done, if you look here, you again see the 5 trebles, or 5 groups of 2 trebles, and you've got a chain space on either side left. And in the 4 chain space, you've got 5 trebles and a chain 2 in between. Well, this bit, what you've just done, repeat that all the way around, and you can see how these 5 groups is the same as these 5 groups. So when you're all the way around, you'll have worked your 4, in this chain 4 space, you'll have worked the 5 trebles, and then come to the first stitch, which will be your treble here, and then close on that stitch with a slip stitch. You can at that point also cut your yarn and fasten off. Round 10, you have color 4 on your hook, and where we're going to start, as you see here are the 5 trebles. In this space that's in between there, where I'm sticking my finger in, I'm going to start in that space with a treble. And of course the first one will be a standing treble. So in this space, start with a treble. There we go. Now we're going to start our repeat. A half treble in the next stitch. So this is this first treble here of the pair. Work a half treble in there. and now a half treble between the next two. So you've got here the 2, and you've got here 2. You've got this space here in the middle. Work a half treble in there. So that's really in the space. A double crochet in the next stitch. That's just a normal treble, so just in that stitch work a double crochet, and then a double crochet between the pairs. So again, in this big space here, work a double crochet, and that we're going to do twice. So that was once, so again a double crochet here, and then a double crochet in the space. And now a double crochet in the next treble. You've now worked 5 double crochets. So if you just want to check that you've done that indeed, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You now have 5 double crochets. Now a half treble between the next 2 pairs. So you've got here the 2 pairs again, so in the middle, in that space, work a half treble, and then a half treble in the last. If you've got these 2 trebles here, in this last one, you work a half treble. And your last stitch is going to be a treble again here in the space where I'm sticking my finger in. Work a treble in there. So between these 2 and the 5, so in that space work a treble. Now this looks a bit uneven, but that is to keep your stitches nicely lined up. So don't worry, there is method to the madness. Then on the on the shells here, I'm going to skip the first stitch, and now we're going to work a back loop half treble on the next 4. So we're going to skip the first stitch, I'm going to yarn over, skipping the first stitch, then come to the second. We're not going to work in the full stitch, only in the back loop. So in the back loop of the stitch, to work a half treble. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. The chain 2 space. So in the chain 2 space, work a double crochet. So now this half is going to be different from the first half, so we're going to skip the first stitch and then work 4 back loop half trebles. So it's not symmetrical here, and again that's on purpose. So skipping the first stitch, come to the second, and in the back loop only. So you've only got the back loop, work a half treble. So that's 1. You're going to work 4 of these. 2, 3, and this here is 4. And now you're here at a space again, same way as we did with the standing stitch. So in that space work a treble, so over that entire space. And this treble you just made is of course equivalent to the standing treble that we started with. So everything we've just done, do that 7 more times I believe. And really do keep track of where these stitches go, because it's really easy to get lost. So keep track of those stitches, because it's not symmetrical. So keep track of this, and when you're all the way around, so after you've done your last stitch, you'll have that worked in this back loop. Close here on your first standing stitch, close on that stitch with a slip stitch, and then leave your yarn attached for the next round because it's the same color. Round 11, we're just going to continue with color 4. So I'm currently in that first standing stitch of the previous round with the slip stitch. So here's still my yarn tail. So chain 3. 1, 2, 3. This counts as a treble. Now in the next 10 stitches, going to work a treble. The next stitch. That's the half treble here. This is your next stitch. I'm going to work 10 stitches. So that's 1, 10 trebles, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So you now have 11 trebles in total, and the last one here falls again in the treble on the other side. So you've got this one and both between the trebles. So 11 stitches in total. On this pedal here, I'm going to work half trebles on the next 4 stitches. And this is also the start of our repeat. So the next 4 stitches, so that's 1, work half trebles, 2, 3, 4, 4 half trebles, double crochet in the next stitch, and that's actually the double that's in your chain space, so that's just a checkpoint for you. So double crochet in there, and then again a half treble in the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that last stitch should fall in the last half treble here. That's in the back loops. Another checkpoint. We're now going to work 11 trebles again on the next stitches. Here is 1. That first one falls in the treble. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's a bit more yarn, 9, 10, and 11 should again fall in a treble. That's 11 trebles. I just fold this a little back. You can see it's starting to flatten out a bit. This stitch is the same as this stitch here. So you see that treble and this treble. So we've just done here, starting at the half treble. Do this all the way around. And on your last repeat, of course, you won't work the 11 trebles because you've already started with that. So after your last half treble, close here on the start on the chain 3. At the end of round 11, I'd just like to show you how to close with an invisible join. So I'm just going to cut my yarn and then open up this loop. Now thread this yarn on a needle. So it's an invisible join, is a needle join. There are different names for this. So thread it on a needle. If we now look at the stitch, you see here's the chain 3, and I'm going to come to the stitch next to it. So that's the first treble, the treble next to it. So underneath both loops, insert your needle, and then come back to the other side. So this is the last stitch worked. And insert your needle into that stitch from top to bottom. So if you look at it this way, so you're really sticking it in from top to bottom. And then pull your needle out here at the bottom. And now you've got these 2 loops here, and these 2 loops are actually the top of your stitch. So as you pull this closer, just kind of help it into position. And you want these 2 loops to be the same size, so these 2 loops to be the same size as the rest of your stitches. So I'm just going to pull that a little bit tighter. There we go, just a little bit more. There we go. and now it's nicely secure and you can hardly see that anything is happening there. Now you can work away this yarn tail and then you're all set for the next round. Round 12, I have color 2 on my hook, and this round we're going to work a back post half treble on every stitch. I'm going to start on the stitch where we ended, so that's here. So let's hit this chain 3, going to start in that stitch. The standing back post half treble. So yarn over for the half treble, come around this chain 3. Oh, just hold on to that loop. There we go. So you do need to hold your finger onto that loop. And a back post half treble. And now on every stitch, work a back post half treble until you're all the way around. This is a nice relaxing round, just working stitch by stitch, back post half treble on every stitch. And when you're back at the start, all the way around, close on your first stitch. It'll be this standing stitch here. Close on that stitch with a slip stitch, and this can be sometimes a bit tricky, that standing stitch. But so just make sure to grab both those loops because it's a standing half stitch. So here, and there we go. So this is the loop of the standing stitch. Close in that loop with a slip stitch. But for now, work a back post half treble on every stitch all the way round. Round 13. This round we're going to start squaring up the design. So from now on you'll have a chain 2 space, and that's your corner space. So let's start with the first few stitches. I'm going to start in the stitch where you made the join in the previous round. So I've just left my yarn tail on. So in that first stitch from the previous round, I'm going to start in there with a standing treble. So it's the stitch that already contains the slip stitch join. So you need to look properly where that stitch exactly is. Yes, it's in this stitch here. So in the same stitch that already contains the slip stitch join, start with a standing treble. And 5 more in the next stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and this here is 5. This yarn tail, I'll work that away in the next row. 6 trebles in total. Now we're going to start the repeats. In the next 3 stitches work a half treble. It's 1, 2, a bit more yarn, 2, 3 half trebles. Now a double in the next 11. So that's quite a bit. So I'll make a small jump in the video. It's 2, 3, 4, and 11. 11 double crochets. Now again half trebles. On the next 3 stitches work a half treble. So 1, 2, 3 half trebles, and a treble on the next 6 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this here is number 6. 6 trebles. And now I'm going to make the corner. In the next stitch, I'm going to work a double treble, so yarn over twice. In the next stitch, I'm going to make a double treble, chain 2, and this chain 2 space, that's going to be your new corner. then yarn over twice again for a double treble in the same stitch, so in exactly the same position. In that one stitch you've worked a double treble, chain 2 and a double treble, and in that chain 2 is your corner. And now a treble in the next 6 stitches again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is number 6. And these 6 stitches are actually the same as the 6 stitches that we started with. So starting here after these 6 trebles, so at the half treble, all of this you've just done, repeat all the way around. So you need to do this 3 more times. Then you'll also have created 4 corners. When you're all the way around, so after your last half trebles, you're going to close here on this, after your last, I believe it will be a double treble, you're going to close on the first stitch here with a slip stitch. Leave your yarn attached for the next round. Round 14, we're going to continue with the same color, and you're in that first treble there, that standing treble with a slip stitch. Now we're going to start by just moving up 2 positions. So I'm going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. So that's the first one, and the next one. So you've just moved up 2 stitches. So the next stitch, so you've already got 1, 2, 3. You're in the 3rd treble here. The next stitch is the 4th treble, just so that you can see your bearings. And it looks like there's a skipped stitch here, but that's not the case. It's just me that still needs to work away yarn tails, and then that little gap will close up there. So we're now going to do a chain 4. 1, 2, 3. That's a treble, and then chain 1. So that's why you're doing chain 4. And now we're going to come back and work a treble in the previous stitch. So we're going to like cross over here. So let's remember this previous stitch, and that stitch there, already contains a slip stitch. So it'll be a bit of a tight squeeze, but that's okay. So yarn over, and you're currently in this stitch with a slip stitch. So come back to this. So this is the 2nd treble. Pick up your yarn. Take off 2, take off 2. Now this looks a little messy, but once you're on your way, this will flatten out. Now we're going to start the repeat. A treble in the next 2 stitches. Now remember, you've already got a stitch in here. This one's already worked. See, there's a slip stitch in there. So this is not your next stitch. This is your next stitch. 1 and 2. It's 2 trebles. A half treble in the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 half trebles. Now we're going to work 11 double crochets again, and your 11 doubles should fall exactly in the same position as the 11 doubles from the previous row. So your first double crochet should be in a double stitch here, and if that is not the case, so if this is not a double crochet that you're working into right now, and it's not the first one either, then something has gone wrong here, most likely with the slip stitches and the skipping stitches and this whole story. So your first double crochet should now fall in your first double crochet from the previous row. So that's an important checkpoint for you. So we're going to work 11. So that was 1, 2, 3, 11. So 11 double crochets. In the next 4 stitches, work a half treble. And again, the first one falls here on the first half treble there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 half trebles. And in the next 2 stitches, a treble. So that's 1, 2. We're going to skip the next stitch and then work a treble. So I'm going to skip this stitch, then work a treble in the next, chain 1, and then come back and work a treble in that skipped stitch. So you're going to fold your work and come back into that stitch that you skipped. So you're working a cross stitch again. You see you've got that cross stitch there. Chain 1, and now you have 2 stitches left. You can see there you've already worked, so you've got 2 stitches left, and now your next stitch is then the chain 2 space, your corner space. In this space we're going to work a few bobbles, actually all 4 treble bobbles. Yarn over, in this space work 4 treble bobbles, so that's 1, 2, 3, just need more yarn, 3, 4, and I have 5 loops on my hook. Take them all off. Chain 2, and make some room here because you got to make 2 more of these treble bobbles, so really make some room there. That's 1, so again 4 of these legs, 2, 3, 4, and take them all off, and 1, 2, chain, and now again the last treble bobble, 4 treble bobbles, so again 4 of these legs, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on your hook, take them all off. Chain 1, and that is a very nice but slightly full corner. I'm going to skip 3 stitches. Now the first stitch is very hidden, that's this stitch, that's the first one. So this stitch you can see here, that's actually number 2, and this here is number 3. So we're going to skip 3 stitches and then work a treble. So it's 1, 2, 3 skip, and then the stitch after, work a treble, chain 1, and now we're going to come back in the previous stitch and work a treble, so again making a crossed stitch. So yarn over, we come back in that stitch and work a treble. There you go. And this crossed stitch is exactly the same as the cross stitch here that we started with. So after the cross stitch, up until this point here, I'm going to repeat all of this 3 more times. And remember that checkpoint here on those doubles. Your first double crochet should be in that first stitch, and if not, then something went wrong here. Go all the way around, and then I'll just show you how to close here, because you're going to close on the 3rd chain, but I'll just show you the closing as well. And just at the end of round 14, just want to show you how to close. We've just worked the last treble bobble here, chain 1, important, remember that, chain 1, and now we're going to close on the 3rd of these 4 chains. Now you see, sometimes it's easiest to count from the top, because that's the stitch, then that's just chain 1, and then come to the chain just below, insert your hook and close with a slip stitch. Cut your yarn because the next round is a new color, and open up this loop. Round 15, I have color 5 on my hook with a slip knot, and we're going to start in the first stitch after the cross stitch after a corner. So you've got the corner stitches, the cross stitch, and that first treble there. We're going to start in that stitch, in this stitch here with a standing treble. Let me just yarn over, hold on to the loops, and then that first treble after the cross stitch, start with a standing treble. Now we also make a treble in the next stitch. So that's 2 trebles. Now we're going to start our repeat. Half treble in the next 19 stitches. So that's quite a bit of a stretch. So that'll bring you here to the other side. So that's 1, 2, 3, and continue till you have 19. 4, 19. That's 19 half trebles. Now work 2 trebles on the next stitches. That's 1, and a treble on the stitch after, 2. At this point you should be exactly before the cross stitch again, so that should be your next stitch here. Chain 1. We're now going to skip the crossed stitch, and we're going to come down to the stitches from round 13. I'm just going to open up my hook, and we're going to work actually similar to what we did here. Here, these long stitches here. Going to do that similar here. You see this treble that you skipped? In that stitch we're going to work a double treble. So, twice over for the double treble. Then in this skipped stitch from round 13, and you're going to work over the chain space, grab your yarn and complete the double treble. So you're working over the chain space. 3 trebles in this same chain space. So you're now working just next to the treble the double treble that you just made. So in that space there, work 3 trebles. That's 1, 2, 3 3 trebles in the chain space. We're now going to move over to the bobbles, and what we're going to do is we're going to work 3 trebles in this chain space here. So 3 trebles in that chain space. So 1, so you've got that chain 2 space there, 2, and 3. Chain 2, and this is your new corner, this chain 2 space. I'm going to skip the bobble that's here and come to the next space, so that's that one there. I'll work 3 trebles in there. So that's 1, 2, 3 trebles. Just going to turn my work a bit. This chain space here that I'm poking my finger through, work 3 trebles in here, and that's the same as before the corner. So 3 trebles in that space after the 4 trebles. 2, 3 trebles. Now we're going to come down and work a double treble again in this skipped stitch. So that's this skipped treble here in that stitch. Going to work a double treble just like you did before the corner. Twice over in that skipped stitch and work over the chain space and complete the double treble. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. Next up is the cross stitch. I'm going to skip that and then come to these 2 trebles just after the cross stitch and work a treble on each of those. It's 1 and 2. And these 2 trebles are exactly the same as these 2 trebles here that we started with. So from the half treble, all this edge and the corner, going to up until these last 2 trebles, going to repeat this 3 more times. And when you're all the way around, you're going to have a last chain 1 and then you close on this stitch here with a slip stitch. Round 16, I have color 7 on my hook, new color. And we're going to start in any chain 2 corner space with a corner. I'm going to start with a standing half treble. So yarn over in that stitch, that corner stitch, work a half treble, and then another half treble, chain 2, which is your new corner, this chain 2. I'm just going to move things up a bit, and then 2 more half trebles. So your corner is 2 half trebles, chain 2, and 2 half trebles. And that's your corner made. I'm now going to start the repeats on the edge. On the first 6 stitches, so those are these trebles here, I'm going to work a back post half treble. So yarn over, come from the back around that first stitch, and this one is sometimes the most tricky, the first one. It's 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, and then here's number 6. There we go. So that's 6 back post half trebles. In the next stitch, which is going to be the long stitch here, that next stitch, work a double crochet. Double crochet in that stitch. Now we're going to work popcorn. We're going to make the popcorn, if I just open this up, in the chain 1 space here of the cross stitch. So if you come down, you see here's the cross stitch, and there's the chain 1 space, and we're going to make the popcorn in there. And while we do so, we're going to work in front of our fabric, so that's going to be folded to the back. We're going to be working like this. So a popcorn is in that chain space, the chain 1 space, work 5 trebles. So yarn over. So in this chain space, it's really sit here to get into that space and work in front of the fabric, so make sure that's to the back, you don't want to cover any of that. So in that chain space, work 5 trebles. It's 1, 2, just need more yarn, 2, 3, and as you make every treble, make sure that you're working in front of your work. You don't want to do this, you want to make sure that will be incorrect. You really stay in front of the stitches here to the back. 3, 4, and 1 more, 5. There we go. Now open up this loop, I hold it onto my finger so that nothing happens to it, and now come to the first of these 5 trebles. Insert your hook in there, put your working loop back on your yarn, on your needle, pull the yarn tight and pull through. That's your popcorn stitch made. We're now going to continue with double crochets, and we're going to work them on the next 23 stitches, and that's going to be all of these stitches here until you get to the next space. So that should be 23 stitches. And here's the first stitch. That's your first stitch. A double crochet, that's 1, 2, so you need to work 23. That should bring you exactly to the other side. 4, 5, and 23. Stitch number 23 should fall exactly before this chain 1 space. That's stitch number 23. Now I'm going to work the same on this side as that side. So again, a popcorn in the chain 1 space of this this cross stitch here. So I'm going to work a popcorn in there again. So in the space, in that cross chain 1 space there, and again be sure to work in front of your work, so you're folding everything here to the back. And now work 5 trebles, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and this here is 5. Open up that loop, come back to the first treble, pick up the loop and pull through. It's your popcorn made. A double crochet in the next stitch, and that's again the long double treble from the previous row. So a double crochet in there. On the next stitches, your next 6 stitches, you're going to work a back post half double. So yarn over. So those are the 6 trebles that you have. Going to work a back post half treble. So that's 1. A bit more yarn. 2, 3, 4, 5, and here's the last one. 6 back post half trebles. Now we're at the corner again, and the corner is 2 half trebles, 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 half trebles, 2. And this corner here is exactly the same as the corner we started with. So everything along this edge, repeat 3 more times, and after you've done your last back post half treble, close here on this first standing stitch with a slip stitch, and leave your yarn attached for the next round. Round 17, we're going to continue where we are at the moment. So with the same color yarn, you're currently in that first half treble there with a slip stitch. I'm going to slip stitch until we're to the chain corner space. So that's 1 and 2. So it's 2 slip stitches. Now we're going to start the first corner. Chain 2. This chain 2 counts as your first half treble. And now the rest of the corner, so that's another half treble. Chain 2 and 2 more half trebles, 1 and 2. So that's your corner made. 2 half treble, chain 2, 2 half treble. Going to start the repeat. We're going to skip the first stitch, and that's actually that little stitch here, and that's actually very nice that we're skipping that because it's notoriously hard to get into. And now we're going to work a half treble on the next 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, that'll bring you up just in front of the popcorn 4, this is 5, 6, 7, and this here is number 8. So it's 8 half trebles. We're going to skip the popcorn. Now the popcorn is this stitch here. We're going to skip that stitch and then come into the stitch after and work 23 half trebles. So hit just next to the popcorn. So that's 1, and now work 23, and that will bring you up to the next popcorn. There's 3 and 23. So those are 23 half trebles. We're going to do the same here. We're going to skip the popcorn. That's this stitch. Going to skip the popcorn and come to the other side, and you see that first double there. That's the one you want to get into. Here, that first double, and that's the first of 9. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's number 7, 8, and 9. 9 half trebles. Next up is the corner. 2 half trebles, chain 2, 2 half trebles, chain 2, 1, 2 half trebles. Now this corner is exactly the same as the corner we started with. So everything we just did, do that 3 more times, and then I'll just see you when you close on the chain 2 with a slip stitch for securing your loop. When you're at the end of the round, you're going to close on the chain 2 with a slip stitch. So here's the chain 2. So just close on top of that. It's a bit small, but just close on that chain 2 there. And this loop, you can either pull up a large loop and let it hang to the back, or what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a stitch marker in here and let this hang to the back, because we're going to pick up this loop later on. So for now, just let it hang there, and then the next round is a new color, and then we'll pick up the loop after that. Round 17A, I have color 6 on my hook with a slip knot, and for this round we're going to be working in front of the fabric that we already have and into these stitches here. You've made back post stitches around them, but the top of the stitches are still open, and that's where we're going to be working into. Going to start here with the popcorn. We're going to work up, you see, you skip the popcorn stitch. If you just pull your work open, you see there's the popcorn. So insert your hook in there. And we're going to work a standing double crochet. So just a hook is fine. Pick up your loop from the back, bring everything forward, and complete the double. Going to continue and now work into these 6 stitches. The first stitch, that's this treble here, that first one, work 2 trebles into that stitch. 1 and 2 into that first treble. In the second stitch, work 3 double trebles, so yarn over twice. Again, into the top of the second stitch. So that's 1 double treble, yarn over twice. 2, so you're going to work 3 into that one position. And this here is 3. 3, and then a third one. In the third stitch, you're going to work 2 trebles again. 1, 2. This gives you this nice little arched shape. going to work a double crochet in between. You see, you've got the 3 trebles here, and those 3 trebles, if you just pull them open where my finger is trying to poke through, just in between there, work a double. On the next 3 stitches, we're going to work the same as we did on these 3. Now, but this first stitch is of course now hidden because that double crochet kind of falls over it. So you're going to have to pull that open a bit. And there's the first one. So work 2 trebles, so that's 1, 2. In the center stitch again 3 double trebles. So that's 1, 2. Just need a bit more yarn. And 3. And in the last stitch work 2 trebles again. So 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1, 2, and now we're going to come over on the other side, and on these 6 stitches we're going to do the same as we did there. So, and that first treble is kind of hidden by your corner, so you're again going to have to just dig a bit for it. 1, 2 trebles. In the second stitch work 3 double trebles. This is 2. And this is 3. Then on the third stitch 2 trebles. But this is exactly the same as on the other side. Again, in between work a double, and now on the last 3 stitches again work one of these arches. And that first stitch is now again very much hidden by the double, so you're going to just have to dig for it. It's 1, 2, and on your second stitch here work 3 double trebles. So 1, 2, and this here is 3, and on your last stitch is again 2 trebles. 2. So now you've got these lovely petals here. I'm going to secure all of this by working in the skipped popcorn. If you look at the popcorn, there. So here's the popcorn, that's kind of this stitch there. Again, work in front of your stitches from round 17. Work a double crochet. At this point you can cut your yarn. Cut your yarn and open up this loop. There we go. These yarn tails, pull them to the back. And I'm actually, if you just go above the popcorn, there's kind of this natural gap there. Just grab your yarn tail and pull it through that gap to the back. And then you can easily work your yarn tail away here in your fabric to the back. And I'm going to do the same on this side as well. So I'm just going to pull this yarn tail to the back. And then you don't see it from the front. And then here it's sticking out, you can just work it into the stitches here at the back. So this was your first corner. When you've worked one of these corners, repeat this on the other 3 as well. And then when you've done all 4, just work your yarn tails away to the back, and then you're all set for the last round of this part. Round 18. For round 18 we're going to pick up the loop that's here to the back. So I'm just going to take my stitch marker out, and then I can pick up that loop easy. Now we're going to start by moving with a slip stitch to the chain 2 corner space. That means in the next half treble, a slip stitch, and then in the corner chain 2 space, a slip stitch. Make a chain 2, and this here does not count as a stitch, so that's just to get you to the correct working height. Now we're going to start the repeat unit. We're going to start by making a corner, and we're going to work the corner through both the chain space of the petals here and the chain space that's on the square here to the back. So I'm going to yarn over because we're going to be making trebles. So yarn over, then go through the chain space here on the front of the petal, and here at the back the same chain space. So through all of that, pick up your loop and complete the treble. So that's one treble. We're going to make 2 trebles. So again through all of those, through both loops, chain 2, which is your new corner, and then 2 more trebles in the same way. That's 1 and 2. So that's your corner made, and now you've secured your petals in at least one position to your square. Now, on the straight edge, we're going to skip the first stitch, and actually maybe it's a bit easier if I show it you here. There's the first stitch, so we're going to skip that stitch, and this stitch here, then I'm poking the second stitch, I'm going to poke my hook through, and you can see it on the other side, that stitch there. That's the one we're going to be working in, but we're going to be working behind the petals. And if you're in doubt, you're not sure, it can be sometimes easier if you look at it from the front, because here you can see both stitches. Okay, it's that stitch, that one there, so for example, then I mark it with a stitch marker, I bring it to the other side. Okay, now I'm definitely sure it's this stitch here. Now there's no mistaking. So it could be a way that you're sure that you're working in the right stitch. I'm just going to remove that marker. In that second stitch, if you pull this to the side here, you see there's the first one. So that's the first treble you're going to work, and that's the first of 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we go, 5 trebles. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I think that would be beneficial. Now we're going to work a treble through the double crochet that's here in the middle of the petal, that double crochet there, and the next stitch. So that way you're going to secure this petal again to your square. So we're going to work a treble, so it's yarn over, then insert first through the double crochet here, and then come to the back and take the next stitch, and then bring all of your loops forward and complete the treble. I'm going to continue here again to the back and work a treble in the next 4 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. There you go. That's 4 trebles. We're now going to be doing the same. If you look here, you might have to dig a little bit for this stitch. But you see, here's this double crochet here. Remember, this is the last stitch you made. And like I said, you might have to dig just a little bit for that stitch, because you've pulled it to the back with your yarn thread. Through that double crochet and the next stitch, we're going to be combining those again, and that's a way to secure the petal again to our square. So yarn over, so come through the double crochet here, and then through the next stitch as well, and complete the treble. There you go. And now you can, if you just fashion this a little bit, you can see those petals lying there really nicely. Continue and work a treble on the next 21, I just need more yarn, 21 stitches. Let me just check, where's the next stitch? That's in this one here. Yeah, so 21. So that's 1, 2, and continue until you've worked 23. Then you'll be on the other side, and I will do the same with the next petal as well. 21. Of course, 21 proper stitches. There we go. So that's 21 trebles here. Now we're going to do the same here as we did on the start of the row. So yarn over, come through the first double crochet petal and the next stitch to the back, through all of that, and then yarn over, bring all your loops forward. Try not to snag anything anywhere. There we go. And complete the treble. Continue to the back and work 4 trebles. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now again, connecting the petal to the back. So yarn over for the treble, come through the double crochet that's here in the middle, and the next stitch. Oh, sorry, that was out of view. And the next stitch. So the double crochet and the next stitch, and complete the treble. So this is the same idea as on the other side. And on the next 5 stitches, work a treble. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're at the corner. And the corner is again yarn over, 2 trebles, chain 2, 2 trebles, and through both chain loops. So this one and the one here to the back, everything at the same time. So 1, 2 trebles, chain 2, and 2 trebles, 1 and 2. There you go. And this corner is the same as the corner we started with. That means everything we've just done, repeat this 3 more times, and when you're here, after your last set of after your last treble that's through all your stitches, I'll show you how to close here with an invisible join. At the end of the round, when you've made that last treble, you can cut your yarn and open up this loop. Thread the yarn on a needle. There we go. And now to do this invisible join or needle join, here's the first stitch. Remember, this chain 2 doesn't count, so you just ignore that chain 2. Here's your first stitch, then come to your second stitch and insert your needle underneath your second stitch. And now we're going to make a new little hat on top of that stitch. So I'm pulling the loop a bit close, then come back to the last stitch worked, insert the needle from top to bottom through that stitch and pull it out at the back. And now you're going to pull this closed until both of these 2 loops nicely and cover the stitch and are the same size as the stitches left and right. So that's about like that. I'm really happy with that closing. So I'm going to work away this yarn tail and then we're all done. So it's a good idea to look at size. This is what your work looks like at the end of part 1. We just want to measure. I have a stonewashed kit And your stonewash should be about 27 centimeters, and that's exactly what I have. If you have a color crafter kit, it's about 28 centimeters your work. So 27 for the stonewash, 28 for the color crafter. Work away any last yarn tails you might have, and then you're all finished for next time, when I hope to see you for part